All right, everybody, welcome to the Detroit Hustle Podcast with your host, Melinda B. Powers. And today we are in for a very special treat. We are going to be talking to someone I consider a friend. We went to high school together. She is an author and an educational guru extraordinaire, in my opinion. Her name is Keena Day. Keena, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. No problem. I understand you're actually in the D right now. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes, I
Yeah.
am here in Gidee.
All right. So you're on vacation though, because you live in Colorado, correct?
Yes, I live in Denver.
Okay, cool. So thank you for taking out the time on your break away from your everyday to talk to us. And we're going to try to keep it as short as possible, but we want to get all the goods from you. So give the audience just a brief introduction about you, where you come from. You can talk about your old neighborhood and the schools, just kind of your base, your foundation as a Detroit native.
Okay, cool. Thanks again for having me today, and I'm really excited to sit and chat with you about the D. Super excited to have this conversation.
Okay.
So I grew up on the west side of Detroit, was there my entire life. Grew up in a working class family. My parents are both musicians. My mother is a singer. My stepfather is a bass player, and they both still actively perform in the Detroit area. My father is a painter, and so I just came from this very creative family. One of my uncles is a guitarist and has played with George Benson in the city and things like that. So that was just kind of the base of where I grew up. Mm-hmm. I went to Verner Elementary, and then I went to Beaubien Middle School. And Beaubien was pretty special, I would say, because we got the opportunity to study majors in middle school. So I was a pre-engineer major while I was there. Okay. So that gave me the opportunity to study with the Tuskegee Airmen, and I got to do a lot of work with DAPSEP. I got to do a summer in engineering activity in Michigan. Like, I just got a lot of opportunities from going to Beaubien Middle School and doing that work. And I also got the opportunity to, as a singer, to perform with the City for Youth Choir, which was a really big choir for children in Detroit at the time. So Aaliyah used to do some work with that choir or whatnot. So we just got the opportunity to really do a lot of creative work in Detroit as a child, and they made that available for a lot of children in Detroit. And so I left Beaubien and went to the prestigious high school, Cass Technical High School, where I was an auto tech major.
Wait. Auto tech?
I was an auto tech major. Most people don't know that.
Right.
But because I got the opportunity to study pre-engineering at Beaubien, I did get to do work at Davis Aerospace High School and study power plant engineering as a middle schooler. So I got the opportunity to learn how to fly planes and all that other kind of stuff. And so it just lent itself for me to do that when I got to Cass. So I got the opportunity to do a lot of engineering work while I was at Cass.
Wow.
And I did have to minor in avocational music though, just because I was in so many performing ensembles at Cass. So I was able to do both of those majors at the time that I graduated. But then I left and went to Tennessee State University, which is historic, and was very, very active at TSU. I marched in the band, the aristocratic bands there. I just did a lot of work there with that band mostly. But I was an aerospace major when I was at TSU, and also an English minor, and I ended up becoming an English major by the time I graduated. And so my BA and MA is in English education. So since then, and that was almost 20 years ago now, since then I've been an educator for the last 15 years. Have done a whole lot in education, and I know we're going to get into that a little bit more, so I'll talk about that a little later. But I mean, but being from Detroit just really set up that foundation for me to be able to do all of the creative things that I'm involved in now.
Now I'm sitting here with my mouth wide open because I didn't know a lot of that. I thought I knew you. And it's no surprise to me that you come from a family of artistic people and musicians because you've always been involved in the arts in some way or shape or form since I've known you. So that sheds some more light, but all of the technical stuff, I mean, that would be considered STEM, right? All the aeronautic or the
Yes,
arrows. Okay, so like I didn't know you were a STEM STEAM lady. That is really
yes,
interesting. Cool. All
yes.
right.
Mhm.
So you schooled us, and then you said I think you might have cut out a little bit when you mentioned you went to Tennessee State University. So I just wanted to make that clear for the
Yes.
audience in case it got a little muffled. All right. So now we're going to talk about your journey, and I know that there's a couple of different paths to it. The audience might not
Mhm.
be aware, so we're going to let you reveal that to them. And I guess we can kind of start when you realized you were on the path that you're on now. Like, when did that kind of click for you?
Well, um, just in sharing that whole background, like with engineering, with music, and with English, I've been able to really bring a different lens to like how we learn literacy. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that people think that literature should be taught just as is, but everyone has to understand there's a form and function to everything that we do. You know what I mean? Like there is a, you know, there are like granular aspects to everything that we do. And so I always worked really hard to make sure students saw the scientific nature of how things are put together and understand like how literature is crafted and how even grammatical sentences are crafted and things like that, and really getting students to understand the roots of like how language is formed. And so, with being able to marry those aspects of my life and being able to really share that with students, I've been very, very successful, especially when it comes to students of color, being able to get them to tap into like the more nuanced aspects of literature. And so that has been basically what my life story has been and what my journey has been. And I would say that I probably figured that out somewhere around my junior year of college because I needed to make all of that stuff make sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
and like marry them, you know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
Like, because you just do all, you just, in Detroit, you're just exposed to so many different things. Like at some point you have to make sense of it. And so for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was becoming a teacher. So I became a teacher at 21
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, that's pretty
I
young.
didn't teach. Yeah, and I didn't teach very long. I only taught for about 3 or 4 years before I started being catapulted into like coaching realms and things like that. But
Okay.
um, I just really honed like for students like how to understand the basics of how language works.
Hmm.
And once you can really break that down for students, like you open up a whole world of understanding for them, and that's been like the most fulfilling part of everything that I do. But um, I was a teacher for a long time in Nashville for, let's say about 10 years, but I went from teaching and then I became a coach at 25 years old. I was the youngest district literacy coach that they had at the
Hmm.
time. And it was a very, very new concept because a lot of districts didn't have literacy coaches that went into schools and coached teachers on how to actually teach
Hmm.
literacy. And so I was one of those first cohorts of people who went to schools and helped to formulate that. So I went in and helped transform a lot of different aspects of what we did in the school. So it would be like intervention for students who struggle with reading or writing. I put together a whole like intervention plan for students with disabilities as well as students who are English language learners, and we were able to get really high scores. And I was taken to a turnaround school. That's a school that was currently like low performing and was able to go on with a new principal and turn that school around. So that is basically how my career has like continue to go. I go into turnaround schools and help the principals turn that school system around. So it has led to what I am now, which is the director of literacy for KIPP Colorado schools in Colorado. And I work with principals and assistant principals on how to make sure that their students are all, learning. Also, through that, I've been an adjunct professor, a writing professor, and I have also had the opportunity to teach Black Arts Lit, which is what my master's is in. It's Black Arts. And I got the opportunity while I was at Tennessee State University. Of course, most people may or may not know, but there are a string of Black colleges in that street, Jefferson Street at Tennessee State, which Fisk is right down the street. And a lot of people may or may not know, but a lot of Harlem Renaissance texts belong there because one of the prominent writers, Arna Bontemps, who is Langston Hughes' good friend, he was a librarian at Fisk and curated a lot of Harlem Renaissance work there. And then Robert Hayden, who is a Detroit native, he became the librarian after Arna Bontemps and created like a whole collection of Black arts lit. So I was able to study at Fisk and just basically live in that library and learn everything that I needed to about W.E.B. Du Bois and everybody who attended Fisk. A lot of our big Black names really attended Fisk, and a lot of people don't know that. And so I was just able to live in that library and just learn so much. So that kind of, informed me being able to become a writer. And so from that education that I received, I've now published 2 books. The first one was called The Colors of My Boudoir, which took, it really just imitated a lot of the rich African-American literature that I've been exposed to. And I wrote a fictional novel that was based off of that. And now, currently, and about a month ago, I dropped Aphrodisiac, which is also, paying homage to a lot of that Black literature, but taking it a step further and just talking about what we need to do in our communities to basically go back into history and learn some of the things that we're not learning in school, and really just exposing people to some of the, Black history that exists for us to use some of the things that, made us successful in the time of segregation, and what we can use to push that thinking forward and, use it as a way for us to change what's going on in America for, Black people. So that education definitely it just lives in everything that I do right now. So
right. And then and you've also neglected to mention your activism, because we've been involved in a couple of things in the last few years related to activism. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Tennessee State University, I did a lot of activist work. It started with me doing a newsletter called it was called Wise with one of my good friends. And we just questioned a lot of the whitewashing that was going on at our HBCU. At the time that I was a student at Tennessee State, there was a lot of African-American professors that we had who were starting to be replaced by white professors. And I just did a lot of work to bring awareness to students about how that was happening and why that was happening and what we need to do to start questioning that. And I just always tried to use my writing and my abilities in writing and creative output to, push activism forward. So that was in 2004, 2005. So I've just been doing that ever since. And I've participated in a lot of activist activities. I've spoken at rallies for the Dream Act before it was an act, and, definitely trying to be there for my students, because I would have so many students who would, be salutatorian or be high performers, getting 30s on the ACT and things like that, but not be able to go to college because they were, having issues with what their status was considered, as immigrants.
Right.
And so I used to speak out on that quite a bit as a teacher. And that used to always get me in trouble because the school district would have issues with you kind of doing that type of work or whatnot. But, I always did that. And it definitely came to a head for me when Philando Castile was killed. And we all just felt some kind of way about that. And I did a Facebook live on that day and just charged my friends with coming together. And that night we ended up having like 500 people to come together on Facebook. And we put together a whole internet push for an organization, and we called it Now. And, you know, of course, you were a part of that, a big part of us trying to put all of that together. And we had a lot of big things like that. I would say it was a little bit above our time, but, you know, we had a newsletter, a poet laureate, you know, was pushing that kind of stuff out. We did a lot of email campaigns, and we had different people in different cities like Detroit, Nashville, Memphis, that was just doing different activities in the city. So the group in Memphis, they actually had a voters registration drive. The group in Nashville that I was a part of, we actually sat on a few of the mayor's panels to talk about violence and gun violence. And we also did a voters registration panel with a lot of elected officials and campaign managers and activists. And they came and talked to the students and educated them right after Trump was
That's the one I came
elected.
to, right? In Nashville?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Yes, you were there. And we educated the students on like what they needed to do for voting and all of that. Then we also had a partnership with a good friend, Raphael Wright, who is a big mover and shaker here in Detroit. He is putting together a bodega here in Detroit. And so we had some members to help co-op to help him put some money together to put that bodega together that's coming out in Detroit. So, I mean, it just really connected a lot of good people together, and we just really made some big pushes with that. So, yeah, I do a lot with activism and continue to do so. And I'm very active in Denver and just going to continue to push forward. And like I said, I just try to use my writing as my major vessel of being able to, you know, help us get to liberation, because that's basically what I feel like my purpose is in life at this point.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I mean, you're doing it in so many different ways. It's just very cool that you're seeking ways to try to connect all of your talents and skills and your passions so that you can in turn influence others. So that's really huge. And thank you for all the contributions you made. I mean, I watch you through Facebook, you know, as you navigate, I guess, how this connects to Detroit in a sense, like, what is it that you think needs to happen in Detroit to help further a lot of the things you're doing in other places?
Well, I've been talking about this since I've been here in Detroit. I've done a few interviews since I've been here, especially as attached to Aphrodisiacs, the book that just came out. I think that the main thing that people need to really think about, especially as we're talking about this gentrification issue that most big cities are going through right now. I lived in Nashville for a very long time, and you know, you would have, especially in that corridor that I was just telling you about, where Tennessee State and Fisk are situated, like that street doesn't even look like what most Black people would remember it looking like, because it's just been so heavily gentrified. And I remember that when gentrification was just starting, like you would have African Americans trying to buy different like abandoned properties that had been there for years that nobody was even thinking about. Like once they realized that companies was coming in to start buying that, it was like a snap and said, oh, let me try to buy something to open this and open that. And they would get bought out every single time. You also had families who would be on that same area that had owned their homes for years, and they would try, you know, like lowball them and try to give them $80,000 for their home. But then, of course, Nashville is so overpriced now that you can't even afford a house for $80,000 if they give it to you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, those types of things are starting to happen in that city, and Black people just have not attained enough wealth to be able to sustain it. And so if you're looking at a place like Detroit, they're only really gentrifying downtown right now. And we've missed the boat on that area. But there are so many parts of Detroit that have not been tapped. And we just need to get on the boat right now and start really buying out Detroit and really trying to clean up our neighborhoods and do what we need to do. And there's so many of us who have now attained a level of wealth where we could, especially those of us who don't live in Detroit anymore, could definitely start co-opting and, you know, trying to put our money together to buy up a lot of this property, especially while it's still low, you know, for us to get there. And we have so many connections and networks, especially in the Cass Tech network and the Renaissance network and the King network, where we can start putting our money together and buying up the city. Because if we don't, it's not going to belong to us anymore. And I think that that's the number one thing that people need to remember. I also am feeling some type of way about Nipsey Hussle and that tremendous loss that we had yesterday, and thinking about what he's done for the community. I mean, he bought up his block. Like, let's keep that 100. Like, he bought up Crenshaw and owned so many different, you know, businesses and things like that, that a lot of people just did not even realize he was killed in front of his own store. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, we need to just keep that same mindset that he had moving forward and say we need to buy our block and we need to learn from this death. And whether, you know, because I know a lot of people are trying to push this conspiracy theory going forward, but at the end of the day, I mean, somebody black killed him. And we just need to make sure that we're killing, we got to kill that. We got to kill that mentality and that mindset for sure, so that we can get our stuff together, because we are going to fail. I don't know if people really recognize, like, in terms of generational wealth and things like that, we just have not done what we needed to do. And we are about 3 generations behind white people, and we got to get some work together to build our wealth. We have to make sure that we are insured, you know, for our deaths. We need to make sure that, you know, we are using our money responsibly, so we're leaving something for our children. We need to make sure that we are investing in our communities. We have to make sure we're investing in businesses that exist, that are owned by people who look like us. We have to make sure that we're doing that. And that's what we did in the past. And for some reason, we just don't do it. I don't want to say for some reason, because of desegregation, we don't do it anymore. But we need to get back to it. We need to get back to that mindset. What people don't
you're
realize,
getting into my realm, the legacy stuff. That's what I talk about every day, and that's what I work on in my work. So you're preaching to the choir on that. I just hope that everyone that's listening is hearing you and finding a way to search themselves and how they can be better about that, because it really just starts with us as individuals.
Absolutely. And one thing that I want to push out is a book called Our Black Year. It's a lady that's centered out, and I can't think of her name right now, but the book is called Our Black Year. She's located in Chicago, and her family tried to do Black-owned businesses for a full year. And she talks about what that life was like for them for that whole year. And I will tell you that one thing that we just don't even know, we talk about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma all the time, the Greenwood section of that. But in Aphrodisiacs, in my book, I break down, like, basically how they built that community and how we need to get back to building communities like that. But at that time, the Black dollar circulated 26 times before it left our community. 26 times. And people do not realize we keep money in the Black community about, they said 6 minutes or something like that. I mean, we have definitely taken a complete turn around, and we gotta get back to what we used to do. What people don't also know, like Madam C.J. Walker, she did not just up on, you know, on that cash or whatever to start her business. Her church invested in her. And they gave her the seed money to start her $1 million, you know, hair business. Like, those are things that we need to learn from the past and make sure that we bring back to our, you know, our now, and make sure that we're bringing those ideas and those, you know, those practices back to what we're doing today, and, you know, build our communities back up. Because if we don't do that, we are not going to leave any wealth, and we're going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. And if we don't get our wealth together in the next 40 years, I mean, the Black community is looking a little disastrous, you know.
I tend to agree with you on that. And I think maybe to keep a more optimistic outlook, people don't want to admit that, but I think it's a very harsh reality that we're facing every day. even when I'm dealing with clients and they don't have life insurance or they don't feel like they need to do any estate planning. And it's like, but why? And I continue to get potential clients that come to me wanting to employ me, but then telling me these horror stories about how, oh, my mother had cancer. She told me she had a policy and we figured out she didn't. So I'm going to lose this house that she's had for all these years. And it's just like, ugh.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
sad.
happens a lot too. And
Mm-hmm.
the little bit of generational wealth that has been built by some of our family members before, like a lot of people lose those houses and things like that because they just don't plan. So we just need to get the education out. And I think this is the time for us, especially those of us who know better, to really get our voices heard and, use as many platforms as we can. Like I said, I put a book out, Aphrodisiac. My friend Raphael Wright, like I said, he's based here in Detroit. He's putting a book out this week called Make the Hood Great Again. I mean, it's a lot of people who are using our platforms as much as we can to try to educate as we can. So
right. Wow. So, I mean, you have just set the stage for a real series of robust conversations. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get into all of it, but thank you for putting those seeds out there so that our listeners can maybe have some conversations about this, so we can have some exchanges on the Facebook page. But now we got to get to the meat, and that's all about the D section of the interview. So I'm going to ask you one pointed question, and then we're going to go into the Fab Five. So the one question is, in your experience, what makes the D so special? And this is your opportunity to, you can acknowledge people, places, things, but in your overall experience, what makes the D so special to you?
What makes the D so special to me is that it's just a quintessential Black city. And here I was taught that my Black is not a curse, but instead a gift. And Detroit cultivated that mindset in me at a very young age. Just even from being a student at Bobian Middle School and, people investing in me. I was in the DAPSEP program, and that taught me how to be an engineer. I was in the City for Youth Choir, which allowed me to, sing and perform with the Winans and, like all across this country. We just got the opportunity to just be everywhere in the city at a young age. You know what I mean? You would have Wayne State that would just open their doors for you to study art. You would have, the DIA, the Detroit Institute of Arts, that would just open their doors for you to learn how to be an artist and things like that. You had the Tuskegee Airmen that would come and speak to you in your classrooms and things like that. Like, you were just cultivated, you know what I mean? And you were just taught like how to be an excellent Black person. You know what I mean? And every person that I've met out in my new journey as an adult, like, that's from Detroit, we all just have that gift. We just have that special connection because we are proud of who we are as African Americans in this country. And, it's just a beautiful thing because you meet so many other Black people who come from places where racism just plagued their experiences as children. And I can't say that. I grew up as a very proud African American, and that is my experience, and it's because of Detroit. I mean, and then you get the opportunity where your teachers may have taught your parents. Like, most of my teachers that I had taught my parents.
Oh,
Mr.
wow.
Pruitt, who was my professor, he was my, our instructor at CAS.
Right.
Like, he taught my stepfather.
Really?
And so, like, and a lot of my teachers taught my parents. And, you just get that longevity and stuff because those teachers definitely just put roots in the city and made sure that it was generations that they taught. Like, that is what Detroit is about. It's just making sure that they just teach the next generation. And that was just something that, I always kept near and dear to me, and just make sure that, I live with that concept. I would also say that we were taught how to hustle.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Like how to always make sure that we got our hands in so many different pots. I don't know a person from Detroit that doesn't know how to hustle. I just don't. I just don't know a person from Detroit that don't know how to make sure that they can get another dime from somewhere else. Like I don't know anybody like that. And that hustling spirit has allowed me to do so many different things. Like I know in my educational journey, I got the opportunity to finish a fellowship at Yale in education, and I took that and I became a consultant and opened my own consulting company called the Savvy Urban Educators, and that allowed me the opportunity, and still to this day, allowed me the opportunity to travel across the country and like help other schools and help assistant principals and principals be able to really educate our children the right way. But it was literally just because I stepped out and said, okay, yeah, I'm a teacher or whatnot, but I need to step out and do this, do that, do this, do that. I'm just not one dimensional. And I'm not one dimensional because of Detroit and me knowing that I need to have my hands in many different pots. So, taking what I learned and turning that into $1 is definitely something that I learned here.
Right.
In Detroit.
Which, I mean, that's the name of the podcast, the Detroit Hustle Podcast. That's where it comes from. All right. Well,
that's 100%.
You put that out there just nice and plain, and it all connects. I tend to agree. You got my affirmation on all that. So now, now we got the fun part, the Fab Five, which of course is a throwback to the old U of M basketball team from the 90s. And the Fab Five just consists of your favorite Detroit things. I'm going to ask you different categories, and you're going to give me the best answer possible. Some of them are kind of tough. I've tripped up a couple of people, but they've come up with something. So we'll see. We'll see how you do. All right. So number one. Please tell me, Keena Day, your favorite Detroit place or landmark.
My favorite Detroit place is, it's so hard to just pick one. I would have to say definitely the Renaissance Center. I know that's going to sound a little weird.
Oh, no.
But the Renaissance Center is definitely like my favorite place.
Okay. And it sounds like you might have some memories there. I know I did a lot of fun extracurriculars at the
That's why it's mine too.
Right. We won't talk about that. And so we're going to move on to number 2, which is your favorite restaurant or dish, past or current.
My favorite restaurant is Buddy's Pizza.
Okay. Well, that was easy.
And
why Buddy's?
Because pizza is pizza to most people, but a Detroit style 4-square pizza, baby, you're not going to be able to get that anywhere else with a good glass of wine. I'm so sorry. It's just the best pizza. And it is what it is. And you're not going to see a lot of knockoffs of that type of pizza. You have to know the city to know how to make that type of pizza. You can fake a New York pizza. You can fake a deep dish pizza, like a Chicago deep dish, but you cannot fake a Detroit 4-square. You cannot fake that. Okay. And so that's why.
What toppings?
I am vegetarian, so personally I like the margarita myself, but yeah, but personally, like that, just that 4-square pizza. I'm getting ready to go to Buddy's with my sons this afternoon.
Okay, well, don't hurt yourself. All right, so number 3, your favorite downtown event, and that can include festivals, fireworks, parades, auto show, but it has to be something that only happens downtown.
My favorite is the Summer Jams concert series.
Okay.
I try to come every summer for that. And Young Jeezy is like my favorite rapper. And so he would come and participate with that. And I love Summer Jams. Those are some really great long concerts, but just one of the best.
And what month does that happen in?
It's usually in June-ish or July.
Okay. Because that one, I don't think I've ever attended. I may have attended that before when I was living there, but yeah, we want to kind of put it out too, and we tag so that people know if they're there that they can check it out. All right. Number 4, your favorite Detroit sports team.
Well, I'm not gonna pick one. I'm sorry.
Dog.
There's nothing that you could do to me. Nothing you could do to me about it. But I equally love the Pistons and the Tigers. And I go to both Pistons and Tigers games while I'm here. I just went to the Pistons game on Saturday.
Okay.
And I wish I would be here on opening day on the 5th for the Tigers, but I love them both equally.
Okay. And does that love also spread to football and hockey?
Hockey a little bit. I kind of have let football go, because of the Kaepernick situation. But hockey, yes, and just even thinking about like the Stanley Cup, because I was in Little Caesars for the first time Saturday, and just seeing all of those banners of the Stanley Cups and all of that stuff that we've won. Like the Red Wings has an amazing like legacy in hockey, and you just cannot even ignore that as a Detroiter. And being able to, experience all those parades and stuff downtown that we used to have, like, not too many cities can even speak on that. So definitely love the Red Wings, definitely have respect. But at the end of the day, Pistons and Tigers for me all day.
Okay. And I laughed when you were talking about you not football, because I thought you were going to speak on how the Lions performed, but you said it was because of the NFL issue with the kneeling. So much respect. Yeah. I wasn't laughing at that, just to make that clear. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So down to the last one. Number 5, your favorite Detroit memory. And what I mean by that is a memory for you that is so Detroit, you can't classify it as anything else.
I would say, and this is probably going to go to the music geeks or whatever, but we used to have the evening of arts at the Fox, and we would. That is just so Detroit to me, because every single high school, every single year would get to have like performances and stuff like that every single year, and you would bring your performing ensembles down there. And what was such a good memory for me with that is that you would just have these competitions with DSA and Renaissance and Mumford, and you be ready to talk about like what's gonna happen when we see you at Barney Mikowski, and what's gonna happen when I see you at Memorial Day. Like, you just get to have those bragging rights and stuff at the Evening of Fine Arts or whatnot at that time. And also the Renaissance is special to me, because before we would go to the Evening of Fine Arts, all of the band members and choir members and stuff like that, we would all just go down to the Renaissance Center and like kick it and eat and take the people mover and all that stuff, and just experience Detroit life and stuff, and then go and be around all of the high schools and just talk a whole bunch of stuff, and friends with those people to this day, like as adults, like, and we all went to different high schools and stuff, but we can all connect to that memory if you're a musician. So
gotcha. Yeah. And then just to clarify too, Barney McCoskey and all that, this is marching band competitive challenges and all of that stuff. If you've seen Drumline, that kind of competition, but with all of the instruments really, and auxiliary, it was always a competition with marching band. So that in itself is a whole other conversation. That's got a whole universe of its own that we can talk about.
Yes.
But yeah, so I am so sad to say we're at the end. This was so good. Like, I really enjoyed your perspective. It's been a bit different than what we've experienced in the other episodes. You just came with a whole fresh perspective, and I really appreciate that. And that's what makes the show so rich, is that we're speaking to individuals from all different backgrounds. We all have that commonality of Detroit, but we are it's just such a richness of pathways and experiences, and it just all lends to this very robust story of what Detroit produces. And that's why I created this, because we know Detroit's reputation isn't the best in the media. I've spent my whole life since I left Detroit defending Detroit, and it's kind of frustrating because the harshest criticism sometimes comes from people who have never even been there, and I find that so mind-boggling. But this broadcast is designed to have that positive light there to counteract all of the negativity. So I thank you so much for your contribution. Everybody get that book, Aphrodisiac. Where is the book available? for the audience too?
It's available on all booksellers. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, all of the indies and things like that. And we're doing pretty well. It's sold out on Amazon now 3 times, so I'm super excited about that.
Awesome.
And so definitely check it out. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'm Keena in the City. Also on Facebook, I'm author Keena Patrice Day. And so, yeah, you can catch me pretty much on everything. Anything that matters, I'm Keena in the City.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Keena in the City. We enjoyed having you. And, you know, we're going to have to link up sometime. Maybe I'm going to have to come out to Colorado. I've never been out there. So that would be a good opportunity for me to check it out and we can link up. But in the meantime, you just keep on keeping on that path. You're doing a great job. You're inspiring so many people and you're changing so many people's lives. So we appreciate you and we salute you today. Thank you so much, Keena.
Thank you for having me, and good work on this podcast, and kudos to you for putting this together, because Detroit is outstanding and people really need to understand how outstanding the city actually is. So good work on that. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So you have a good day, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Detroit Hustle Podcast. Check us out.